The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
This is Talkin Cowboys. Streaming live from the Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
First down. Handoff, Elliott plowing to the goal line. Barry, sacked by Lord. Prescott keeps it, and he bangs it in for the touchdown.
And now, your hosts, Isaiah Stanback, Patrick Walker, Rob Phillips, and Kyle Yeomans.
It is a Thursday edition of Talkin Cowboys presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company, the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys. We preview the Cowboys offense versus the Washington defense here on this episode over the next 45 minutes. As always, like he said, Rob Phillips, Isaiah Stanback, Patrick Walker, I'm Kyle Yeomans. Glad you're with us. And gentlemen, we're one day closer. It's a short week for the Cowboys. Definitely feels like that because it's a full week of work thrown into 6 days instead of 7 days. But you always would rather have that short week of work, Rob, coming off of a win like the Cowboys had.
Yes, for sure. And so they did the walkthrough yesterday. They'll get back into normal practice today. Quickly, this is an estimated injury report because it's based on what they would have done with a normal practice. So maybe this will look the same today. Simi Fehoko was full. Michael Gallup was full. Luke Gifford was full. The only guy who did not practice yesterday or take part in the walkthrough was Dak, and that was not a surprise. Dak, Mike McCarthy said he's going to focus on rehab with the thumb this week, and that even means also that Dalton Schultz, Connor McGovern, and Jaron Kearse got some limited work. So they're getting healthier aside from the fact that Dak is not quite ready to come back yet.
That's a huge plus.
Yep.
I mean, anytime you can get healthier and knock on wood, of course, moving into a divisional matchup. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit here in a second about Jaron Kearse and what he could bring to the table and kind of the thought process around Donovan Wilson. But is your overall thought of this team, Patrick, continuing to trend upward? I know they've won 2 straight games, but in the overall grand scheme, even when Dak gets back, is the arrow pointing up for the Cowboys?
Right now it is, and this is what the Cowboys were hoping for, fellas. They were hoping that Cooper Rush could step in and win games and, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, dodge the icebergs, so to speak, so that it would buy time for both Dak Prescott to get healthy and some of these other guys. You talk about Connor McGovern, for example, and then the ramping up of Jason Peters, and obviously the headliner outside of Dak being Michael Gallup, who has a chance to make his 2020 debut this Sunday against the Washington Commanders. And the list just goes on from there. We'll see at what point Tyron Smith is going to return, which still looks like going to be later in the year. Yeah. But nonetheless, you're winning games, and you're winning games not being whole on either side of the ball. Talk about Jaron Kearse, for example, Terrell Basham, another guy on Dan Quinn's defense who's not on the field right now. He's on IR recovering. So if you can continue to win these games without being whole, it stands to reason that when you get whole, and they're starting to kind of become that more and more as the weeks progress, you're going to be that much more of a complete team that can then go against the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles, that can then go against some of these NFC contenders on their home turf. So, yeah, absolutely. Needle is pointing north for the Cowboys, Isaiah.
You love to see it. That's it. You let us see it. I mean, who doesn't want a healthy team? And the fact that you can win ball games with backups, no disrespect to the backups, but that's just the position they are on the depth chart. It says a lot about the depth of your team, and it says a lot about the character and the foundation that's in place. So the quicker you get these guys back, obviously, the better. When you just mentioned it in terms of who they have coming up on the schedule, you definitely don't want to look past the Washington Commanders, but you have to acknowledge who you have following that game. Mm-hmm. So you get these guys back on the field, you can be locked and loaded. You want all the ammo you can shoot.
Okay, so based off of what you said yesterday, which was compost on talking about Washington, I mean, it was you were very clear in what you thought about Washington.
Yes.
You just told me not to overlook them, and I understand it's the NFL. Could this be a trap game, though?
It's a trap.
It's a trap, yeah. Could it be a trap game because you're looking ahead to Los Angeles? You're looking ahead to Philadelphia.
If you look ahead, as you mentioned, then yes, it can be a trap. If you come out and you compete the way that you've been competing, then it should be handled the way in which everybody at this table, I would assume, is hoping that it pans out to be. But I mean, these guys are professionals. These guys, I know we're going to talk about their defense today, and they have some dudes. That's the reality. Now, have they been playing like dudes collectively? No. Individually, some of them have been balling out. But at the end of the day, this is a team sport. there's a lot of great players on the defensive side of the ball for the Dallas Cowboys, but they didn't start playing great until somebody was able to put it all together. So if these guys defensively, that is Washington Commanders, do somehow find a way to put it together and start playing well because it's a divisional woe and, they've been suffering over the first part of the season, and all of a sudden they want to try to make sure it all works together when they face the Cowboys, then, yeah, you got your hands full because they got some dudes.
So how much does that happen in the NFL? Because from an outsider standpoint, it's easy for fans to look ahead. It's easy for media to look ahead. But in the locker room, realistically, does that happen? And if it does, how much?
It can, but that's when your leadership comes in. That's when having a head coach that has a Super Bowl. That's when having an assistant head coach that's been to the Super Bowl, and has a Super Bowl as well. Those things matter, and they help the outlook of this team. If you have players on this team, if you don't have leaders in the locker room to keep guys focused, then falls on the coaches. But the coaches would much rather have some of these leaders, Dante Fowler, Jaron Kearse, Tyron Smith, all these guys. You'd rather have these guys speak up and be the ones that keep everybody focused. But the reality is that the practice leading up to the game is what really dictates whether or not you're focused and you're looking at this opponent or you're looking beyond this opponent, because it does happen where guys fall in traps, and you much rather, we've seen it, you much rather those games happen early on in the season than when they actually matter coming up on the playoff time. So they better focus up.
I don't feel like I do feel like trap games are always a possibility simply because of the mentality and the psychology behind it. Yeah. But a defense that has Micah Parsons on it, that also has Trevon Diggs and DeMarcus Lawrence and the fire within Donovan Wilson and so forth and so on, and that unit being orchestrated by the maestro of Dan Quinn, I don't see how a Micah Parsons could take any team for granted, because he really wants to destroy everything that's put in front of him equally week in and week out. When you have that type of energy permeating throughout the unit and you have compatriots and a defensive coordinator that are right there with you mirroring that energy, I don't see how that could be. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, you could say, well, it's probably more possible, but I don't even think that's going to happen, because Dak Prescott is still involved in game planning. He's still in the meetings. He's still active in practices and making sure these guys are focused. And Dak Prescott is in these guys' ears saying, hey, you can't overlook the Washington Commanders. You can't take this for granted. You go out there and you play them to the same level of competition that you would play the Los Angeles Rams next week, that you attempted to play Tampa Bay. Obviously, it didn't go that well, but the intensity needs to be there. And I think it's a team that's coached well enough on offense and to an elite level on defense, to the point where I think they're going to take the Commanders for what they are, which is a divisional rival who's trying to come into your living room and take your lunch.
And try and turn their season around to a certain extent as well.
I don't worry about the Cowboys overlooking anybody, but I look at the offensive side and say, I talked about this Tuesday after the game, they don't have a ton of margin for error. So whether or not you're overlooking somebody, they can't make mistakes. They've been fortunate. They have not turned the ball over so far. I think they have one pick. Dak had one pick, right, in week one?
That's a really good point.
That's it. They have not given extra possessions. Now they've had the penalties. If that kind of stuff happens and they beat themselves, then this game could get closer than we think. And so that's where I look at it. But, yeah, the defensive side of the ball, I think they have a chance to be dominant all year long, and that's gonna keep you in games. But the bottom line is, yeah, it happens. There's only 2 winless teams in the NFL. There's not a lot of bad teams in the NFL this year. So you can rise up and win any football game you play in. And I think maybe Cincinnati overlooked the Cowboys a little bit in week 2. You know, Dak's not playing, Cooper Rush. We turned the ball over a bunch in week 1. We'll be fine. And they got a big taste of Micah Parsons, and everybody now knows how good this team can be defensively.
Trevon Diggs used the term post-game the other day, and it's a cliche. Everybody says it from time to time, but it's defense travels. And I know you're at home, but the defense goes back home with you too. I mean, not only does it travel on the road and it plays well on the road, it comes back home with you. Defense, for the most part, is going to remain consistent, at least in the front seven, just based off of the talent and the studs that you have up front. It's whether or not you can put both of them together. Going back to Patrick's point, offense needs to take care of the football. Defense needs to take away the football, because there's 2 things that haven't happened yet. You haven't forced turnovers, and you haven't turned the ball over. Both of those things could completely affect how the entire game goes.
Well, you look at last week.
Sure.
That game was way closer than anybody ever wanted it to be. And it very easily could have fell to a victory for the New York Giants.
Could you imagine if Cooper Rush would have thrown a pick in the third quarter when they were down 13-6?
It doesn't take much. I mean,
somebody fumbles the ball,
you're talking about a
Dalton
tip ball,
Schultz.
fumble, all those things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how close that game was. It might have felt very much one-sided, but that was a very close game throughout the whole game. So if Dallas doesn't catch fire in that second half and guys start making plays, you probably lose that game.
It kind of felt like it was teetering that way.
Yeah.
And then Cooper Rush just
Yeah.
zip down the field, and you're like, damn, okay.
Yeah, it was a
Coop.
huge
Like,
drive.
You know, when they needed something, they got it.
It was there. But my worry,
5%.
Right.
Yeah, my worry is that you depend on your defense so much that you're playing every game as if it's that New York Giants game. And it's close, and you're hoping that everything just going to click, and eventually you're just going to push through and you're going to start scoring points. But what happens the day where that just doesn't happen? Or what happens to the day where your defense isn't playing lights out, right? Because they're entitled to that. If the defense doesn't play lights out, what is this team?
Yeah, I think you've seen it three different ways so far. You've seen it the way that it goes right, and that's Cincinnati. They get off to a hot start, and your defense plays well. You're able to hold on. You win that game, even though you kind of pitter-pattered down the stretch. You also had it where your offense took until the second half to click against New York, but you figured it out because your defense played exceptionally well. Your defense played well in week one, but there's your answer on what happens if it doesn't click. That's what happens when it doesn't click. It's a 19-3 game, and you don't get anything going. So you've had three really good examples.
Absolutely, all different.
On how that could happen. And, I mean, we're only 3 weeks into the season.
Well, and oddly enough, Dan Quinn, being the blue-collar guy that he is, he loves those back alley brawls. Like, he said it coming out of the Giants game that he craves those types of games, and he said, hey, you know, we can get it on for as long as you want to get it on. If you need to get it on for a fifth quarter, my defense can get it on for a fifth quarter. Like, this is a defensive guy and guru who really wants to see some action out there. So I say all that to say Dan Quinn coordinates a defense that when the chips are down like they were, you know, later in the game in New York before things started clicking on offense, this defense galvanizes and they put it on their back and they say, you know what, we want to, you know, be the ones that win this game if it comes down to that. But all in all, you can't overlook the Commanders under any circumstances. You need to go in here, you need to handle it. Now, to Rob's point, offense. Here we are, week 4. Offense is still the question. Not as many question marks because Cooper Rush has proven he's more than capable, right? And to me, he played a very good game against the Giants. His stat line doesn't show it, but it wasn't because of him. It was because of drops from, you know, Jalen Tolbert and CeeDee Lamb, obviously. So
would y'all agree that was his best game played so far?
He easily could have been over 300.
Yes, he was dropping dots all over the field. So that Cooper Rush shows up again or in a better fashion against the Commanders. He hasn't turned the ball over. Going back to your question about takeaways, Trevon Diggs could have had 2 or 3 interceptions fingertip away on the first 2. The forced fumble by Anthony Brown, I believe it was a football move. The officials believe it was not.
Field.
But my point is that the Cowboys are right there in the takeaway category. I mean, they're right there from having multiple takeaways in the game.
You could say the same thing on the other side, though.
You could.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
Go right
you
back
could.
to
You could.
Cincinnati,
Yeah.
and
Cooper Rush
there were a
had
couple
some.
times
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it could have gone badly for Dallas.
Absolutely true.
I guess just laying it out there, you guys know I'm pretty black and white. Special teams is taking care of special teams. Okay? Defense is taking care of defense. Offense, you still hold your breath. That's the sense I get.
I agree.
I'm still holding my breath on offense. I'm hoping that it goes well.
Especially the wide receiver.
Right? Defense, fully confident. Every team's gonna have problems trying to defend or trying to go against our defense. It's just the way it is. The Dallas Cowboys front 7 is ridiculous. The front 4 is even crazier. The secondary, throw it up there if you want to. They showed you last year. They'll make you pay for it. It's the same freaking guys out there, right? So the defense, there's no question marks. Special teams, no question marks to date. The offense, I'm still like, right? Like, okay, Cooper Rush, you've shown that you can be an efficient quarterback. The stat line, I don't care about the stats a whole lot, but there are those plays where it's like, ooh, we got lucky on that one. But then there are those plays like, dang, he dropped the dog on dime. Right. But it's like it's so back and forth versus when you look at those other 2 areas of the game, you don't have those question marks or that inconsistency.
Okay, give me a confidence meter then. I want the 4 specific units on the offense. Well, we're not going to worry about defense and special teams because, like you said, they're getting their job done. Offensive line, scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence level?
With Peters in,
Sure.
With Peters in, I'm at 85%.
What without Peters in?
70.
Okay. So 7 out of 10. That's still pretty good. That offensive line, that makes me feel good if your confidence level is that high. Wide receiver. And that we'll throw tight ends in there too. Wide receivers and tight ends. Confidence level 1 through 10.
75.
So pretty high there too. Decent. I mean, it's a C.
Not passing in grad school.
you gotta get an 80 in grad school, right?
Grad school. Quarterback, 70.
Okay, so still not
Currently.
passing in grad school.
Yeah, no.
Are we getting a master's here? What are we doing?
Absolutely.
Are we
That's
going
all that
for a
matters.
bachelor's?
Everybody gets a bachelor's back.
Okay, okay, shots at me.
No,
Fine, fine, whatever.
Shots at
Just take
us.
my bachelor's, tuck my tail, and run.
Shots at us.
What about running backs?
Running backs, I'm at an 80 on the running backs.
Okay, so they're passing.
Yep.
So that's decent. That's like an overall grade of what? Like a 74? If without Peters, and probably like a 78 with Peters, something like that.
You get your college credits for that.
Yeah,
but,
there
but
you
it
go.
barely.
Credits.
Yeah.
Credits matter.
Defense as a whole.
Defense, I'm at a 95.
Like a 98. Yeah, for me, that's a lot. So, and then
Special
They're
teams.
working on extra credit.
Special teams are high. You know what? And I know we're
got that
talking.
multiplier.
Right, they're working on
I know
extra
we're
credit.
talking Washington's defense today. The third of the game that's shown up most for Washington this year has been their special teams. When I turn on the film and watch them, their cover teams are crazy. Their cover teams, and nobody watches that stuff, right? Fans don't look at that. Most people just blow by it. They go sit on the toilet for that time, whatever it might be. Their special teams unit, and I bring that up because I know how aggressive we are in terms of our return game. Our guys that are on that front line, our guys that are dropping back and sprinting back 40 yards, setting up, getting their hips square and trying to make blocks on their guys just to give Turpin an opportunity to return the ball. You better get on your horse. You better get on your horse because these guys work their tails off special teams wise, and they're running and they're hitting. They are running and they are freaking hitting. So we talk about thirds of the game and how that can impact you. Don't slip up, right? Don't slip up. Personnel wise, again, just like last week, you should handle it. Right, I picked the Giants last week because I felt like Dallas might look past the Giants, and it was close. It was freaking close. This week, I feel obviously we haven't done our bids yet, but Dallas should destroy these guys if they approach it the way that they should. And it's very easy to look over special teams. It's very easy to take your defense for granted, just because their offensive line gave up 9 sacks last week. It's very easy to take those things for granted.
Yeah.
And your offense, again, has to deliver because I'm still on the edge.
I do agree that special teams is a strength of Washington, and I think that in this matchup it's a strength on strength because one of the Cowboys' strengths is special teams as well. I think what could also work in the Cowboys' favor is they might get Luke Gifford back. And you talk about what fans tend to overlook and the importance of special teams and who are some of your aces on special teams and who makes that train go. Luke Gifford is one of those guys for the Cowboys that makes that train go.
But does he get on the active roster for the game?
I think if he's healthy this week, he's back on the active roster.
Was he active week 1?
Yes.
Yeah, just last week.
Yeah.
It was
the only reason he wasn't
was
active
not.
last week was because of the hamstring that popped up on Sunday, and they described that as soreness, not an actual injury per Bones Fossil. So if he's back on the field, what I'm saying is that's only a surplus of talent, more so for the Cowboys special teams, which is already their strength. So
I don't disagree with you, but I do believe that Luke Gifford is on the bubble.
He is a favorite of Fossil.
He is a
and
favorite
for
of
good
Fossil,
reason.
but who do you sit?
Well, now that becomes a question because Brillo, a.k.a. Jabril Cox, I love that nickname that Fossil gave him. Brillo was able to make his 2022 debut because of the injury to Gifford, and Brillo had, a chunk of the special team snaps, drew a lot of praise from Bones Fossil. But I don't know just yet that if Gifford is healthy, that a solid outing on special teams in one game from Jabril Cox is enough to supplant what Luke Gifford has already established as a foundation, as a baseline with Bones Fossil. So if Gifford is healthy, my money is he's back in this game, and it just makes the Cowboys special teams, which is already strong, stronger.
Don't overlook special teams. We don't overlook special teams on this show,
no.
especially when you've got Isaiah Standback, STNBACK. and back.
Ooh,
And he also owns a company called SD Steadfast.
Wow.
Special teams. There's a reason. I think it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence.
Kyle dropping the hot 16 in here this morning.
When we come back here on Talking Cowboys, is the Washington front seven still scary to this Cowboys offense and especially this Cowboys offensive line? We'll talk more about it when we come back right after this.
When you build, you start with the foundation. And home ownership is a foundation of a stable future. The Bank of America Community Home Ownership Commitment has helped over 34,000 people lay the groundwork so far, with up to $10,000 towards your down payment or 3% of the purchase price, whichever is less. The satisfaction of owning your own place can become a reality. Visit bankofamerica.com/homeowner to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America NA, Equal Housing Lender. Credit and collateral is subject to approval. Restrictions apply. This is not a commitment to lend.
Lil Sweet! Did you get to work on time?
Yeah, but I just realized it's Sunday.
Lil Sweet says head on home. Dr. Pepper's on its way. So sweet, unique. Baby, there's nothing better. I bet you've probably done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper. Did you invest your nest egg in an NFT?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is. It's a non-fungible token.
Everyone's done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Are you ready to take coffee off your grocery list forever? Black Rifle Coffee Club is here to help. As a coffee club member, you'll get your favorite coffees roasted, packaged, and shipped to your door free of charge on your preferred schedule. Set it, forget it, and never run low on coffee again. Members also get exclusive deals on coffee, products, and discounts from partner brands. Ease your mind and let Black Rifle worry about your coffee supply. Go to blackriflecoffee.com to join the coffee club today.
Back to Talkin' Cowboys.
If you're listening to this show, then you're a Cowboys fan. But are you a Cowboys fan who spices up the game? You should nominate yourself or a friend for the Cowboys Fan of the Year, presented by Captain Morgan, and win a trip to Super Bowl 57 in Arizona. Nominate yourself or friend at dallascowboys.com/fan of the year. Isaiah, who's the fan of the year in your life?
Has to be the wifey, man.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it got to be the wifey.
That's a good one.
She's always held me down.
What about the kiddos? Good?
Yeah, the kiddos, they get popping too. They get popping too.
If you don't follow Isaiah on Instagram, it's a treat. Almost every day they do this on the way to school. You do the school singing, right?
Yeah, school drop off.
That's right.
Every Wednesday morning when I drop them off to school, we turn up one time. Absolutely. We roll up. You know, I got a sub in the car, so we be and I don't turn it down when we pull up to drop them off either. So the teachers outside, because the teachers get the kids out the car and the teachers be in there.
Get the vibe right early.
Yeah, we listen to Eminem rolling up too.
Get the vibe right early.
Yeah, my daughter's favorite hype song is my hype song, and that's Eminem. All right, Eminem song where he is
What's the song?
Which one?
Can you say the name of the song?
I Am.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
So I'm really big advocate of her being an individual and standing firm on who she is. So that's her turn up song.
That's perfect because I was literally I rode in this morning listening to Eminem. I was listening to Nat, G and A-T. And so we're talking about M. So I guess Marshall is the vibe this morning.
Yeah, Slim Shady.
Yeah,
Marshall Mathers.
Yeah.
Emmy's hype song's a little different. Driving every morning, we listen to gospel from the Monsters University soundtrack.
That's real turn up right there.
Big time.
I thought you were about to say like Cocomelon or something like that. Like it's just something in the background.
Not quite Eminem, but you know.
Hey, I mean, feel free to sprinkle some Encanto in there. I mean, yeah.
Hey,
we got that.
Yeah.
We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno.
That's on the list,
ladies and gentlemen.
We gotta get you a sub.
Don't talk about.
We got to.
We gotta put a sub in the track.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Just wait till you have kids, Kyle.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm right
Your whole music choice changed.
Everything.
I can't wait to look outside and just be in the parking garage and just have Rob pulling up and he's bumping in Kanto like on his way in. And so
my daughter's like tall enough now. She's huge, right? But my daughter's tall enough now where she now sits in the front seat, which is an adjustment for me all by itself. But she gets in there now and she starts typing in her own little song that she wants to listen to, or she starts playing with the there's features on the car. We're not sponsored by them, so.
But hey, shouts out to Bruno, misunderstood, gravely misunderstood. we got you, Bruno.
Yep. Nate Newton, what did you listen to on your way into the Star today?
Just my own mind trying to get these Bama twins down, man. I'm just listening to the
big boys,
the Washington Commanders, man. That's about it.
This is a great segue.
Look at there.
Fantastic segue. Nate Newton joins us here on Talkin' Cowboys. He told me the other day, he was like, man, every time I walk by, you guys are having a ton of fun in there. Really looks like you're the top show on DallasCowboys.com.
That's what I heard.
So it's just an opportunity for him to come in and just be a part of the best podcast.
You're trying to get some of them numbers, huh, Nate? Okay.
you know, man, that is so true. I mean, every time I'm serious, since the first few weeks, I walk by every day and you guys are excited. Y'all doing your job, man. I would just want to say Patrick and Rob, man, y'all, thanks to y'all, the show is really going on.
I knew it was coming.
Like it.
I knew it was coming down the line.
Coming from the hip. All right, we were going to preview the Washington defense in this front seven. Some of the guys you just mentioned, those Bama twins that you're looking out, and that's Jonathan Allen. Getting after it again. He's still been fantastic. And Nate, I'll start with you, but who exactly are you looking forward to seeing challenged on the Cowboys offensive line against this front seven?
It's going to be Farniak and Peterson when he's in there, man, going against the run, Payne and Jonathan Allen. That's my matchup for today. Can these two guys challenge our center and our two guards? And if we can handle that right there, we're going to be okay because we've been getting success on the outside. So Sweat don't really scare me. Davis don't scare me. But now Cole Holcomb, his boy, kind of scares me in the middle. So the middle of their defense versus the middle of our offense, if we can get something going there, man, and maintain some type of consistency with the run that we've been doing these last few weeks, hey, it's going to be a dynamite game.
Is that what you've been seeing on film?
Yeah, their interior is their strong point. I mean, they're two interior guys, and then Holcomb, who if everybody in Cowboys Nation should remember him from a couple years ago when he lit up Zeke.
Yeah.
He's still a dude. He still rocks a C on his chest. He makes plays. He comes downhill. He covers well. He's an undervalued player, I would say, in the league. So they're kind of that little triangle right there, in the middle. I think they're really strong. But to what Kyle kind of pitched to the segment, do you think that their front seven is still scary?
No. They haven't played together since that feud between the Bama boys last year when somebody slapped someone and they haven't played together. I know Jack Del Rio, the defensive coordinator. I played with him. I used to block him continuously. I'm just joking. I know that. He's pulling his hair out. And Coach Rivera, he's saying in his mind, what is going on? This is the strength. We've put 5 first-round picks. As Jason Garrett said, we've put multiple assets into the defense, high-round picks, and they're not performing. Why? Any one of these guys, from Montez Sweat, even to Davis, their last pick, the outside linebacker, why? They can take over a game, but why haven't they done it?
I think to your point, and I'll kind of lean on something the rookie Tyler Smith said yesterday in the locker room. He said that, quote, I play for these dudes around me.
Oh, there you go. Preach.
Right? So flip it to that situation after that altercation in Washington. It doesn't feel like those two guys are playing for the guys next to them. It feels like they feel a way about the guy next to them as opposed to feeling like, hey, I want to run through a wall for this guy. So to these guys' point, it's something that you have to respect because of their talent level and their skill set. But as far as being feared, they're not playing together. You don't have Chase Young. Still keep an eye on Holcomb because he also had that interception on Dak that, one of the more ill-advised interceptions from Dak. But respect the talent. But as far as fearing them, there's nothing there because this is also a Cowboys offensive line, particularly when Peters is in at left guard. They allowed no sacks on Cooper Rush last game. I think only 4 pressures overall, and this was against Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau, and so they can get the job done, particularly against a defensive front that may not necessarily feel great about each other.
I have one question.
Yeah.
You said no sacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the quick release of Rush at 2.43?
Second lowest release rate in the NFL, by the way.
Hey, fellas, y'all have a blessed day, and God be with you.
Gonna leave it there?
Nate just literally dropped the mic. How about that?
Thanks, Nate.
And one of the other things, and I think we'll address this on some of our other shows, but on film, what most people don't see also, unless they're watching the All 22, Kellen Moore is doing a lot of max protection.
Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm. And they're running a lot of two-man concepts, and they just happen to be hitting on it because Kellen Moore knows what coverage they're going to be in when they're in certain personnel groups and certain formations. So he's doing a great job of doing his homework.
That's a really good job on Kellen Moore's side, right?
Absolutely.
Just for fans out there that don't necessarily understand how tough that is to do. That's really hard to do.
He knows percentage-wise, right? The GAs or whoever is giving him these stats lines and all these numbers, and he's able to say, okay, when you're in this personnel grouping and you line up in this formation, this percentage of the time they're in this coverage. So you're rolling the dice and saying you're playing the percentages. So he knows when he runs a two-man concept, he still has high confidence that they're going to be effective and be open. But they're have 4 or 5 men pressures. He's protecting with 8. So he's giving
and 2 rookie tight ends last week.
Yeah, I mean, but these guys have Cooper Rush has time. And some of it is from just personnel and the guys are playing well, but also Kellen Moore's doing a great job of giving him the confidence that, hey, we got you. Just sit back there and find your guys.
Science.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one thing, we talked about their defensive front, and they do have guys up front who can cause havoc. But if you go back and watch this Philly game from last week, Jalen Hurts had all day. Not consistently, but he had a lot of time. One thing they did do well against Philly was stop the run. 72 yards for Philly on 30 carries, but they leaked a lot of yardage in the first 2 games against Jacksonville and Detroit. I think there were a couple 40-plus yard gains against Detroit. So there's opportunities for the Cowboys, and especially, like Isaiah said, if they're committing to max protecting. And to No C's point, you go back and watch it, and Ferguson and Hendershot did a nice job filling in for Schultz as far as pass protection goes.
And what the Commanders really have been giving up is passing yards. This is where if Cooper Rush can get that ball out quickly and effectively and the Cowboys can keep him clean, they can skewer this Commanders secondary. And kind of touching on what I said yesterday, you have to respect the talent of a guy like William Jackson III. You have to respect the talent of Kendall Fuller. But this is a Commanders secondary that's allowed a 100-yard receiver in each of their first 3 games. They gave up 254 yards and 2 touchdowns to the Eagles just last week between Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. We'll see if Gallup plays, but if he does play, Brown and Gallup are the same archetype, right? So if Brown and Smith are quite literally the same archetype as Lamb and Gallup. So if Lamb and Gallup are on the field together against the Commanders, it's just going to be that much more difficult because we've seen what those 2 archetypes put together can do against this Commanders team. The Commanders secondary also only has 1 interception. We talk about the Cowboys having not racked up takeaways just yet. Well, the Commanders haven't either. Their defense as a whole has only forced 1 fumble through 3 games, and they didn't recover that fumble. They only have 1 interception, which was a couple weeks ago. So Cooper Rush continued to get the ball out quickly. Kellen Moore continue to scheme up protection for him. Those guys continue to execute in those trenches, and Cooper Rush and this wide receiver group can have a field day.
So, Devontae, 21.1 yards a pop last week. A.J. Brown, 17 yards a pop. So do you think they adjust and Washington just goes into a shell and just tries to take away anything downfield and forces Cooper Rush to go 12 plays.
Wouldn't
drives.
that be exactly what Cooper Rush wants?
Right.
Like that's exactly what Kellen Moore wants.
That's the style that's worked.
Yeah.
Especially if your running game's working. And, man, they have really attacked on the outside with those rushes and done a really nice job, especially running left. Left was really good last week.
Really good segue, Rob Phillips. It's
Thank
like you looked at the rundown before you walked in.
I always
How
do,
about
Kyle.
that? And I know you do. That's why I said it. When we come back here on Talkin Cowboys, we're going to elaborate a little bit more on the run game. Are we going to see more of what we've seen over the last 2 weeks from Tony Pollard when we come back with more Talkin Cowboys presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company?
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Black Rifle Coffee Company serves premium coffee to people who love America. When you drink Black Rifle coffee, you are directly supporting veterans, law enforcement, and first responders in your community. Black Rifle's expert roasters love coffee almost as much as Texas loves football, so it makes sense that America's Coffee partnered with America's team. Go online at blackriflecoffee.com and fuel up with the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys. That's blackriflecoffee.com to fuel up today.
This sweet! Did you get to work on time?
Yeah, but I just realized it's Sunday.
Little Sweet says head on home. Dr. Pepper's on its way. So sweet, unique. Baby, there's nothing better. I bet you've probably done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper. Did you invest your nest egg in an NFT?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is. It's a non-fungible token.
Everyone's done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
Back to Talkin' Cowboys.
Whether you're watching from home or you're cheering in those stands, with Essilor lenses, you can see every exciting play. Book an appointment at your local Essilor experts and see what Essilor can do for you. See more, do more. Essilor on Talkin' Cowboys.
Somebody really
messing with it. It's just
B-Roy, can we get some WD-40?
Is it loose?
It's not
You
gliding,
break it,
it's-
you bought it.
You break, you buy it.
I liked how Beamer he faded into your
Yeah, I
shot.
see that. You
today.
see that?
was good.
Yeah,
It looked really
I
good.
saw it at the corner of my
It
eye.
fit the aesthetic of the whole Essilor read, as always. If you're listening to the podcast, which by the way I know Apple podcasts have been a little messed up lately, that's trying to get fixed.
Apple.
We're trying to get it ready to go. So stop! Don't start this on the air. Isaiah's a big time Samsung or just anti-Apple guy, really. If you're listening, check us out and watch us on YouTube. Watch us on the website. Watch us on Twitter. It's fun watching and putting faces to the voices and stuff.
amazing
and the
faces.
names.
I mean, why would
3
you
of
not
the
want to
4
watch
of
us?
us.
I mean, yeah, 3 out of 4 of us.
I mean, it's
honestly.
Well, I mean, tell me how you feel about me.
Just referring to myself, sir.
About me.
Chris Beam, Patrick Walker, Rob Phillips, Isaiah Stanback wrapping things up here on this Thursday edition of Talkin' Cowboys. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Now, I put this in the rundown, and Rob, you were just alluding to it. Are we going to see more of what we've seen from the ground game or what we saw from the ground game in week 3 moving forward? Consistently staying with the ground game and running with the ball and allowing for the big play to strike every now and again with a guy like Tony Pollard after Zeke wears him down.
I hope so. I think that's the formula here. When you look at this defense and what they can do, play to them. Play to them. Win time of possession. And like No-C's been saying, run, set up the downfield plays. That's how you do it, and scheme it up nice for Cooper Rush. It was almost a 50-50 split between Zeke and Tony Pollard last week. And I thought that's what we were going to see most of last season. And they kind of started off the season doing that. I don't know what happened. Zeke gets hurt and still was the majority guy. And Tony got hurt at some point last year too, but
you know why, Rob?
It was not a committee. It wasn't like they said there was going to be. So
why, Isaiah?
Because the pass blocking. Tony Pollard hasn't added that aspect of his game yet.
He did have one snap that I saw on film where he stepped up and he plugged the gap hard.
That's awesome, and I'm sure that they
got to do it consistently.
They have an amazing running back coach. Skip Pete is that dude.
Yep,
he is coaching some amazing freaking running backs. He's a quiet dude. He goes about his business. He's a goon. He's not one to play with, and he instills that same attitude into his players. And those guys have that approach. So I would imagine that he's a straight shooter. He's probably calling out Tony Pollard every time he messes up. Like, hey, man, like, hey, get this together. You know, like he's that type of guy. And you don't want to be the dude that has the red beam around him in film room. You don't want the coach with the laser circling him like, hey, had we just did this right here, had you just figured this out, we would have been okay. But nah, instead, Cooper got busted in the back of his head. Like,
you're sneaking in your chair.
You're trying to slide down. A little bit. Yeah, you don't want to be that guy.
A couple of those plays in week 1 that happened. Yeah. So you're right. I was still surprised, though, they didn't lean more on TP last year when they needed to, and Zeke was just not 100%.
Where has the talk gone about wanting Zeke and Pollard on the field at the same time? Where did all that conversation go?
They've done it a lot.
Right. Well, the answers have arrived in that aspect. The question mark remained coming into this season, how often would Kellen Moore scheme the tandem on the field at the same time of Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, and they're making it happen. And to answer your question, Kyle, will it continue against Washington? It had better. It had better because we've seen what happens when you get away from it, i.e. week 1. We've seen what happens when you stick with it, week 2 and week 3. You're on a 2-game win streak, and you're going against a Commanders team who you need to slow down the defensive interior. So you're going to use Tony Pollard to burn those edges and kind of get those guys playing on the heels more, run, set up the downfield pass. So you could, in fact, take advantage of a secondary that is quite giving. So to your point, Tony Pollard's pass protection leaves something to be desired a lot of times. But to you guys' point, he's also improved in that category. Is he equal to Zeke in that category? No. Zeke is easily one of the best pass-protecting running backs in the league, hands down. It's not even arguable. It's going to take Tony Pollard some more work to get to that point. But that is one reason why a predominantly run-first team or run-favoring team like the Cowboys leans more on Ezekiel Elliott getting more of those snap counts. But Mike McCarthy said yesterday he wants to see 30 combined touches between Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. That's what he wants to see. That's a concrete number. Ball's in your court, Kellen Moore.
And he said it last year in camp, like, we want to do this in part so Zeke is healthy in January.
Yep.
And we're not putting 300 carries on him like he did early in his career. And Isaiah's been saying this. I know Dak's not playing right now, but I just got curious and looked at these stats again. When Dak, over the last season, going back to last year, when they have a running game going, okay, it's almost like you could divide pre-bye week and post-bye week last year. He was 5-1 with a 114.7 passer rating when they had a running game going and was averaging 164 yards on the ground before the bye week. After the bye week, 105.5 rushing yards per game. They went 6-4, and his passer rating dropped to 99.1. It just, it's just a quarterback's best friend. It's Cooper Rush's best friend.
That smells like science, Rob.
Yeah, it's a little science.
That's a little fragrant.
Science. I'm not stealing Science Lab. That's trademark.
That's
but
fragrant.
Yeah.
That's fragrant.
It's just the stats prove it out, man. And it works for. There are outliers. They didn't have a running game when Coop went 1-0 against the Vikings last year, but this is the formula that seems to be working.
Speaking on formula.
More science.
Bring this back up. Not Formula One. You see how he perked up? He got excited.
I got really excited. They're racing in Singapore this week.
Going back to the offensive line, in order to have an effective running game against the strength of their team, which is their interior defensive line.
Sure.
Okay. We just talked about Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Holcomb, right? Standing behind those guys. Who do you put in? Oh, and John Ridgeway. Who do you put in?
The legend grows.
Massive factor, John Ridgeway. X factor.
Ridgeway's playing.
Rips off the heads of rattlesnakes and eats it for breakfast.
Ridgeway will be playing against Biotis. He's going to be lined up over him.
The legend grows.
Oh, darn.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Yeah, see how he's going to respond. I would be pissed off if I was him.
Yeah,
but
Speaking of people to fear.
Yeah. So do you go ahead and continue to work in Peters, or do you make sure that the interior of your offensive line is strong going against this solid front?
They're going to continue to work him in. I mean, he'll get more than 14 snaps, which is what he ended last week with. But I think Mike McCarthy is hell-bent on sticking to the plan that makes sure and rather ensures that Peters is ramping up to a point where when he gets to 100% of the snaps, that he stays at 100% of the snaps for the remainder of the season. What you don't want to do is get a little rambunctious and say, oh, my God, he looked fantastic in those 14 snaps. Let's just take him to 70 snaps.
Yeah, for sure.
and then you risk some type of injury, soft tissue, whatever the case may be. I predict that you're looking at 25-ish snaps for Jason Peters.
You maybe push it to like 30 if you really wanted
depending
to.
on how the game flows out. He'll get more snaps.
You guys were there.
Yeah.
Did you guys get the sense that he did not want to come out the game? Did you guys get a chance to get eyes on that?
I got the sense that it's the same Peters whom we asked the question when he signed of where would he prefer to play? And he basically said, I'm here to do whatever they need me to do. So he wants to play, obviously, but if he gets the call to be pulled, he's not throwing his helmet. He's kind of like, okay, it's time for Farniok to get back in.
Yeah.
He really trusts that this staff knows what they're doing as far as ramping him up.
Yeah. Nick talked to him after the game. We did not. But when we talked to him when he signed, he does seem on board. Like he said, I haven't had an offseason program. Right. I haven't had training camp. Football shape is different. And there's some conditioning, maybe a little weight that needs to go down a little bit for him. So, yeah, this is all part of the plan for him.
And the legs is a big thing, too. With an offensive lineman, you want to get your legs right. And people that I've talked to, they've said that that's kind of the go-to thing is you want to make sure that his legs are conditioned to withstand the pressure and to be able to build a foundation, because if he's moving at a guard spot, he's going to be pulled. He's going to be moved. He's going to be across the line of scrimmage. He's got to be able to take that hit and take that type of play-by-play beatdown as he goes along.
You think Tyler Smith is scary coming at you?
No doubt.
You saw the first play from scrimmage from Peters?
I know. Imagine if Peters comes out on the pull.
Imagine both of those guys.
I'm running to the side.
Imagine everybody healthy on that offensive line. It's a pipe dream, but everybody healthy on that offensive line feels much better now than it did back in March. Much better now than it did back in March.
Because now you can run right, because Terrence Steele is also doing
playing
very
really well. Yeah.
and run the protection, and then Zach is going to Zach. So you can run right, or now you can run left.
Wow. What a concept.
That is fantastic.
I love this.
That is that stings the nostrils.
I'm ready to go. That's science, baby. All right, that does it for us here on Talkin' Cowboys. Special thanks to our friends over at Black Rifle Coffee Company. For Chris Beam, Rob Phillips, Isaiah Stanback, Patrick No-C Walker, I'm Kyle Yeomans. We'll see you tomorrow with some Say It With Your Chest Friday on Talkin' Cowboys.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.